In the case of conspiracies, thus far, every accusation has turned out to be a confession. If you've been on the internet and you were a liberal power user of the internet for decades now, you'd have known that there have been a sleuth of conspiracy theories designed to target liberals, designed to target the West, America, rules-based order, democracy, and liberalism as a whole. I spoke of this to someone in my personal life during Black Lives Matter as they were enthralled by the world of QAnon and conspiracies that dictated that BLM and the death of George Floyd was pre-planned by certain individuals in order to destabilize America and bring about martial law, and there's going to be paramilitaries and all this stuff on the street. And I told them, none of this is true. This conspiracy is merely a counter conspiracy in order to attack liberalism. The purpose of this conspiracy is political in nature, and we will take a look at this phenomenon as it relates to the Epstein files. We're going to take a look at the Epstein files and the way in which behind the scenes there were people who were co-conspirating to destroy the liberal, democratic, rules-based order. Now, if you've been online since a little bit before 2016, you will have seen in real time, especially if you're someone who was frequent on Reddit, frequent on forums like 4chan, frequent on Twitter, you will have seen with your own two eyes in real time the very quick and very sudden shift of internet culture around very specific, uniform, anti-SJW, anti-woke, anti-liberal, anti-Western, anti-democratic talking points. They just all came out of nowhere at the same time, and they had a resonance that they haven't quite had in a while. But before we get into the meat of this, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of my credentials on this topic and my history here. So we have a video here from 2024. It was the second video in a series that I made, a two-part series, tracking Gamergate as it related to this video game called Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. Very quickly, just to give you a backing, there is this phenomenon called Gamergate. Unfortunately, I had a video on it detailing everything about it, but that video is gone now, deleted from my channel. But in short, there is an individual named Steve Bannon. And in the early 2000s, he had a company which would pay people in China to play World of Warcraft and to earn these items within the game that were very difficult to earn. You know, you had to grind, you had to play the game for a lot of time, you had to level up a lot in the game to get these items. Now, players in the West, players in America and in Europe, they didn't have as much time to grind the game as individuals in China whose sole job was to grind World of Warcraft and earn these items. So Steve Bannon had a company that would pay people in China to just play World of Warcraft 24/7 and earn these rare in-game items. And then those individuals from China would go into the Western servers and they would sell these items for a price to the Western World of Warcraft players. So the players in the West who had the money could pay the Chinese players to get items that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to get at that specific time, thus making them stronger and looking better, having better cosmetics, having better items in the game than other people who played it as it was intended. Understandably, this caused an uproar in the early World of Warcraft community. You guys can look all of this up. Just look up Steve Bannon, Gamergate. You'll find tons of professional journalist articles, not journalism like we have today, but real journalism on what was going on there. But after that happened, there was a lot of anti-Chinese sentiment, anti-Chinese racism that came about in the Western World of Warcraft servers. And while Steve Bannon's company was eventually shut down, he took notice of how the gaming community contained a lot of individuals who could be sort of flipped like a switch into speaking out political talking points, specifically conservative ones. He called gamers, and I repeat, this is not coming from me, verbatim, Steve Bannon called gamers rootless white males with monster power who could be turned on to politics and then from politics onto Trump. And so that was what Steve Bannon was doing in the background from the early 2000s, even up until now. He was forming this phenomenon we now know as Gamergate. Gamergate is an anti-woke social online movement that seeks to remove what it deems to be woke or SJW or feminist or anti-Western or anti-white. You've heard it all by now. Ideals from video games and even further on into entertainment as a whole. If you have been seeing a lot of the anti-woke slop content coming from Twitter and YouTube concerning every movie and every video game that comes out, now you know where that phenomenon started. So I have this intergalactic two-part series where I break down Gamergate. I talk about how it's building up in Intergalactic as its next main target of this culture war in the wake of The Last of Us, which was the previous target, sort of running its course and becoming a beaten horse, so to speak. I'm also a Christian, and I made a video titled Satan Uses Conspiracy and Superstition to Enslave MAGA Christians. One of the biggest points of frustration in my life is how Christians in America have been ensnared or enthralled by conservatism for so long, and especially and most disgustingly by MAGA specifically. I took a look at how we went from Illuminati conspiracies to QAnon, which is also a 4chan-like thing, sort of wrapped in with the whole Gamergate, with the whole cabal conspiracy theories, how we went from Illuminati to that, to whatever concoction of anti-liberal, anti-Western, anti-American conspiracy theories that the right is concocting these days. I took a look at how this superstitious affect, this superstitious sort of temperament within Christians is used for political purposes by the right, who would like to have as many people converted to be against liberalism, against rule of law, and against democracy as possible. These two videos didn't get a lot of views, but I had a lot of conviction in it. I understood that these things were happening. There were people behind the scenes manipulating our politics, especially in the West, trying to destroy liberalism from within through the internet, through internet culture. But unfortunately, the conspiracy theorists, it's very interesting. As liberals, we are tasked with both fighting right-wingers and with fighting leftists, so communists, because they're both illiberals. They both want to see the end of liberal Western democracy. Likewise, as a democratic Christian, we are both fighting the Christians on the right who are ensnared and mind-controlled by MAGA. And we also have to fight these weirdo, schizo conspiracy theorists who seem to have an inkling that someone somewhere that is not known to us is manipulating us into hating one another, into destabilizing our society, into civil unrest. But they always do these really retarded things like make up these conspiracy theories about Hawaiian laser starting fires in Hawaii, and the cabal being full of only Jews and Democrats, and just very carnal, politically advantageous conspiracy theorists, rather than looking at situations as they are, as bleak and boring as they may be. So it looks like Brexit The entire right-wing illiberal shift in Europe, the right-wing illiberal shift and the election of Trump both times in the US, the anti-woke hysteria, 4chan poll, Reddit, even some of the stuff on Reddit was all a psyop by illiberal individuals, maybe not left, maybe not right, but very illiberal individuals who would like to see a return to tribalism, an end of globalization, a reordering of the earth against democratic norms, against rule of law, and against peace. So we have here a screenshot of something that was found in the Epstein files. It is from Jeffrey Epstein to Peter Thiel, the CEO of Palantir. And Jeffrey Epstein is responding to something that Peter Thiel asked. He said, a return to tribalism, counter to globalism, amazing new alliances. You and I both agreed zero interest rates were too high. As I said in your office, finding things on their way to collapse was much easier than finding the next bargain. And even more below, I have it zoomed in here, from Jeffrey Epstein to Peter Thiel, telling him that Brexit is just the beginning of this return to tribalism, away from globalism, away from democracy, away from liberalism, away from everything that made the West great and what it is today. It's unfortunate that America was fooled by this, that MAGA supporters were taken for a ride as useful idiots on account of racism or sexism or pride. They were taken for a ride to destroy America by electing Trump and putting the MAGA administration into power twice. Britain was taken for a ride on account of those same things for Brexit, to devalue Britain so that it is easier to chop up, to defile, to violate by these people. We also have another screenshot where Epstein is messaging someone named Boris Nikolic, and he's telling him in 2011 that he finds the founder of 4chan interesting, saying specifically the potential for manipulation is huge. And we know that the founder of 4chan went on to create Poll, the politics board, under which almost all of this Gen Z slang like goy slop and this anti-woke talking points, anti-liberal talking points, race realism, all of the stuff you're seeing now has been on 4chan for quite some time, making its way into the public consciousness through memes that made their way to other social media platforms. And now since X, formerly Twitter, has become a sort of 4chan 2.0, we are seeing these talking points enter the mainstream in 2026. It's just sad. The reason I brought up this video here of Satan using conspiracies and superstitions to enslave people is because I am a firm believer. You don't have to believe me, especially if you're not a Christian, probably doesn't matter to you, but I'm a firm believer that there is a satanic spirit within MAGA. This administration has a very satanic spirit about it. They bring evilness and vileness and corruption and bribery and death wherever they go. I believe that Trump might even be the Antichrist. It may sound schizo, but that's what I believe. I believe that ICE is a paramilitary force, and I believe that MAGA, in the end, will turn against the very, so-called Christian supporters who supported them thus far. However, I feel distress for all of the people who have been fooled into this cult of MAGA. These people do not care about you. They do not care about Christianity, obviously. No Christian movement would behave the way MAGA behaves. They don't care about abortion or gay people or trans people or this or that or whatever pet issue you had, feminism. They don't care. It is all to destroy everything the Western forefathers have put together, which was to create a liberal, democratic, rules-based order so that we could have some peace, so that we could not be so tribal, so that we could not be so violent as we had been in the past. The key takeaway from the Epstein files, I don't want to talk about the sexual abuse. We all see it. I don't want to go over that on my channel. It's just disgusting. I don't even want to look at it. I want to just, this little sentence here, the potential for manipulation is huge. That is the motto of MAGA. That is the motto of the past, 20 years on the internet. Whichever liberal politician raises into power in the US next needs to do a complete purge of our leadership. They need to bring people to justice. They need to implement some controls, some common sense controls over information flow on the internet. Foreign adversaries, both, foreign adversaries and domestic adversaries, should not be able to so blatantly and openly seek and execute a destabilization of our civilization. They should not be able to do that. And to all of the conspiracy theorists who from 2016 up until now were ensnared by Illuminati conspiracies or end times conspiracies or QAnon conspiracies, you thought this or that, you listened to, various people, Alex Jones, you listened to Twitter accounts, you were a fan of conspiracy subreddits. I hope your eyes are open now. If there's anyone listening to this who is one of those individuals, please, it is not too late to turn. I truly, especially if you're a Christian, I truly, truly believe that there's something deeply satanic about MAGA, and you need to get away from it. You need to get away from MAGA. They will corrupt you. They will turn your heart black. They will turn your heart into stone so that your eyes cannot see that what they are doing is evil. So in summary, there wasn't this was a rushed video. I've been very busy with life lately. I haven't been uploading, but I just had to sit down after work and make this video. It's been bouncing around in my head for so long that this thing that so many of us liberal online, power users have been seeing for so long, this consolidation of talking points among the right, specifically in favor of the destabilization of Western liberal rules-based world order, was planned all along by the usual suspects. There's no cabal. There's just people who love money and want more of it and are willing to do anything to get more of it, including destroying lives, destroying nations, destroying peace, and turning brothers and sisters against one another.